Says it may ramp up use of plastic bottles and raise prices due to President Trump's 25% tariff on aluminum imports. The beverage company currently imports aluminum for cans from Canada, though it could shift to look for domestic aluminum sources.
What about the consumer? Because we heard from other staples so far this quarter, this season, Procter & Gamble, your competitor Pepsi, they cited uncertainty with the consumer and how that's led to trade downs and different decisions.
A Coca-Cola, an iconic American brand synonymous with creativity, cultural influence, and global brand power, is reportedly preparing for an unprecedented move, relocating its headquarters and much of its operations out of the United States. According to sources, the decision stems from the heavy tariffs imposed by Donald Trump's administration on aluminium and other strategic materials, forcing the company to consider more fundamental alternatives. Under the leadership of CEO James Quincy, this move underscores the massive challenges multinational corporations face as they struggle to navigate an increasingly protectionist policy environment. The implications of this decision go far beyond the balance sheet. It carries cultural, geopolitical, and operational consequences as Coca-Cola prepares to loosen part of its deep ties with the United States. At the core lies Washington's pursuit of a new economic direction, where trade barriers are erected to shield domestic industries and reinforce economic self-sufficiency. Yet, rather than simply protecting, such policies have triggered a cycle of retaliation from major partners such as Canada, China, and many others, leaving U.S. goods facing harsher tariffs abroad. In this context, Coca-Cola, heavily reliant on its transcontinental supply chain, is directly affected. The company depends on imported aluminium to produce billions of cans, sweeteners from South America, flavorings from Asia, and a web of cross-border services and machinery. A single link taxed or disrupted makes the entire system costlier and riskier. In practice, aluminium prices have surged dramatically due to trade barriers, while other raw materials have also spiked, steadily tightening profit margins. Maintaining this model in the long term would mean either cutting deeply into profits or raising prices, both of which place the company in a difficult position. James Quincy himself has admitted that operating within an economy caught in a tariff war leaves Coca-Cola falling behind its competitors. As a result, the company is forced to weigh the option of relocating to a more stable and trade-friendly environment outside the US. And, if this becomes reality, Coca-Cola's departure from Atlanta, Georgia, where the brand has been rooted since the late 19th century, will not simply be a business decision. It will be a symbolic shock, marking a widening gap between the United States and the very brands that once embodied the American dream.
Story is moderating inflation, coming into the landing zone, back to the classic story of earning the right for pricing.
There has been this big story that's blown up between your competitor Pepsi and Carrefour, where they said, forget it, we're not going to put any Pepsi products on our shelves anymore because we don't like the price hikes that have come through. What do you deal with suppliers? Have you had any of those same kind of pushbacks or issues?
When we deal with our own suppliers, we have a very long-standing approach.
The familiar red and white Coca-Cola logo, recognized across the globe, has long symbolized American creativity, business success, and the reach of the country's cultural soft power. The company's advertising campaigns tied to messages of freedom, joy, and prosperity were once seen as vehicles that carried America's image to every corner of the world. Yet now, with the decision to shift operations out of the United States, that very message reflects a different reality. A nation once considered a safe haven for international business no longer holds the same standing. The economic impact is far from minor. Coca-Cola is not only a symbolic brand, but also a corporate giant directly employing tens of thousands of workers and indirectly affecting millions more through its distribution networks, retailers, and service providers. Should Coca-Cola depart, a domino effect could unfold, bringing disruption to jobs, incomes, and the health of industries dependent on its presence. This may also serve as a wake-up call for many other international corporations, from technology and automobiles to pharmaceuticals and finance, as they reassess their strategies for maintaining a presence in the United States. If Coca-Cola truly relocates its headquarters, the ripple effects could spread into commercial real estate, employment structures, and domestic supply chains which are already under strain. In that case, the effectiveness of traditional U.S. incentives, ranging from tax breaks to subsidies, will come into question. Are they still enough to keep global corporations anchored amid a climate of trade wars and resurgent economic nationalism? Both Congress and the U.S. administration may be forced to reconsider their policy tools. For if a brand as iconic as Coca-Cola abandons its homeland, this will not merely be the story of a single company. It will mark a profound shift in how international businesses shape their strategies, as well as in the balance of global economic power. According to early reports, Coca-Cola is considering Europe as its next base, with leading candidates, including Germany, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. These countries offer world-class logistics infrastructure, open trade policies, and stable political environments. If realized, the move would allow the soft drink giant to sidestep the turbulence of US trade policy while accelerating its access to the vast European market. Yet, opportunities come hand in hand, with challenges from stringent environmental and labor regulations to cultural and political barriers that differ greatly from those in the United States. For instance, if Coca-Cola chooses Europe, it will need to significantly strengthen its sustainability practices to meet the region's tough standards. Alternatively, moving to jurisdictions with lighter regulation, such as Singapore or the UAE, would expose the company to criticism from environmental and social advocacy groups. In other words, every option requires major trade-offs. On a cultural level, Coca-Cola's departure from the United States is not simply a matter of changing addresses. It signals the close of an era in which the brand accompanied America through multiple chapters. From cans carried by soldiers in the Second World War to images of the American dream during the Cold War, and finally, as an indispensable fixture on television, billboards, and in daily life. This decision forces a deeper question. Can national identity withstand the pressures of economics? For American consumers, the prospect of Coca-Cola leaving home soil may bring disappointment, perhaps even spark backlash, as this brand has long been regarded as a point of national pride. On the global stage, the move is a reminder that the United States no longer guarantees the image of being the safe and reliable economic destination it once was, and that, according to many observers, could significantly weaken America's soft power in the years to come. Relocating a giant corporation like Coca-Cola out of the United States is anything but simple. The company would have to deal with a host of issues tied to more than 50 facilities currently operating on American soil, ranging from its headquarters, research centers, and distribution warehouses to bottling plants. Legally, thousands of contracts with suppliers, partners, and real estate leases would need to be reviewed. An enormous workload that could take years to resolve. Added to this is the challenge of security. Moving proprietary formulas, customer data systems, and digital marketing technologies abroad carries the risk of leaks and cyber attacks. On top of that comes the pressure of compliance in the new host country. For example, if Coca-Cola were to relocate to Europe, it would have to adapt to strict rules on personal data protection as well as local labor standards. All of this increases both complexity and operational costs. Another burden lies in the human factor. Thousands of American workers would face unemployment or uncertainty, and even generous severance packages would hardly compensate for the real losses. Perhaps the most painful aspect is the emotional one. For many communities in the United States, Coca-Cola has long been seen as an integral part of the local economy, a symbol of stable employment across generations. The prospect of the company leaving home feels like a betrayal, leaving behind a void, both material and emotional, for workers and their families. Beyond the impacts on employment and operations, another less discussed consequence is Coca-Cola's relationship with American universities. For decades, the company has supported research programs in food science, sustainability initiatives, and marketing projects. Should this funding be reduced or interrupted, countless labs, scholarships, and community programs could face disruption, leaving a difficult gap for academia and students alike. As a brand deeply woven into American culture, Coca-Cola now faces the question of how to redefine itself in its new journey. Will the company embrace a fully globalized image or adjust to align more closely with the cultural values of its new host nation? This is not an easy choice, as brand perception directly affects customer loyalty, investor confidence, and regulatory scrutiny. A single misstep in positioning could erode market share, particularly at a time when PepsiCo is leveraging its ties to America to strengthen its Made in USA appeal among consumers. At the same time, smaller artisanal soft drink brands and local bottlers could seize the moment to attract attention. With a rising sentiment in favor of local products, many consumers in both the United States and Canada might shift to homegrown alternatives to Coca-Cola, something once almost unthinkable. The decision to leave the US would also reshape how Coca-Cola builds and manages its innovation ecosystem. Without its traditional ties to American universities and research institutes, the company would need to forge new partnerships, perhaps with leading European schools, emerging technology hubs in Asia, or ambitious startups in the Middle East. This shift could give rise to product lines with more distinct regional identities. Low-sugar beverages tailored for European markets, herbal teas for Asia, or mineral and electrolyte-enriched drinks designed for hot climates. Alongside these innovations comes greater pressure for corporate social responsibility and transparency in supply chains, particularly in regions such as the European Union, where laws demand detailed reporting on environmental impacts and strict guarantees against human rights violations. From a financial perspective, relocation will undoubtedly entail substantial short-term costs. Yet, many experts view it as a sound long-term strategy. Investors are responding cautiously, but remain generally optimistic as stable trade policies abroad could help Coca-Cola sustain growth and safeguard profitability. Should the company choose to list its shares on major exchanges, such as Frankfurt or Tokyo, it would not only broaden its investor base, but also attract sovereign wealth funds and pension systems, which tend to favor enterprises committed to sustainability and transparent governance. Coca-Cola's departure from the United States will certainly create openings for competitors. PepsiCo will likely seize the opportunity to assert itself as the more authentically American brand, while smaller firms may leverage shifting consumer sentiment towards local products or niche beverages as tariffs drive up costs and market access narrows. American consumers may face higher prices, fewer choices, and a beverage market increasingly crowded with brands that lack clear distinction. The company's withdrawal could also benefit countries that embrace free trade policies, allowing them to promote their image as safe and attractive destinations for capital and global operations. At the same time, nations hosting Coca-Cola's new base could use its presence as leverage in negotiations with Washington, turning the company into an asset in bilateral trade talks. This underscores how the line between corporate strategy and national strategy is becoming increasingly blurred. When multinationals like Coca-Cola shift their operations, they are not only adapting their business models, but also helping to shape the global economic order in which the private sector plays an ever more pivotal role for policymakers in Washington. Coca-Cola's departure sounds like an alarm bell. It will undoubtedly fuel heated debate over trade, corporate taxation, and America's competitiveness on the world stage. The desire to keep other corporate giants from following suit may force Congress to introduce new legislation. While think tanks and lobby groups will split into opposing camps, one pressing for protectionism to safeguard jobs, the other emphasizing the need for free trade. Consumers, too, are likely to view products through a new lens, caring not only about price, but also about origin, transparency, and social responsibility. As Coca-Cola embarks on this transition, it enters a borderless arena in which success will depend on adaptability and cultural sensitivity. The company will need to redesign its leadership, management, and innovation strategies to survive and thrive in an entirely different environment. These changes will touch every corner of the business, from its workforce and supply chains to its brand identity, and inevitably the ripple effects will extend far beyond the company itself, reaching financial markets, consumer sentiment, and even the geopolitical balance of power. This is not merely a business story. It is a vivid illustration of the complexities of 21st century capitalism. Coca-Cola's exit from the United States not only raises questions about corporate responsibility to the nation, but also forces a reckoning over where the limits lie between loyalty and global efficiency. As the company writes its next chapter, the world will be watching closely for the relocation of an American icon represents more than a change of address. It signals a broader restructuring of the international economy, and its impact without doubt will be debated for decades too.